Let me take this opportunity to wish you all a good afternoon, and thank you for joining us during this session. A couple of months ago, or maybe 7 months ago, before COVID hit us, we never thought that we could communicate so vividly with Zoom and Teams and Blue Jeans and all these different apps that are there. But the COVID has made us tech savvy, almost by force, because this is the way in which we have to communicate these days. Let me also take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Muthoni Gathecha. I am from Kenya, and I work with an organization known as Creatives Garage. Creatives Garage has had a long-term partnership with Africalia. They have been extremely supportive of the work that we do. And maybe I'll tell you just a little bit about Creatives Garage. Creatives Garage is a hub for creatives, both visual and technical. We give an opportunity for artists in all areas to give them more or less what I would call market access. They're able to bring their giftings or their talents or their creativity or their, whatever they have put, and we give them an opportunity to thrive in that way. One of the ways in which we have done this is through Calabars. Calabars is an app that we developed that allows us to receive content and distribute it. So both music and productions, documentaries, artwork, and so on and so forth. So we give them an opportunity to display their wares and also so that people from as far and wide, because it's an application which is right now in Play Store. You can always download it and see the kind of work that we do. Creative Garage consists of about 12 employees. When I sit in this position that I am now, on behalf of our Chief Executive Officer, we actually call her the Chief Mechanic, because if we are Creatives Garage, it means the head of the garage would be a mechanic. So we call her the Chief Mechanic, who is Liz Kilili, who has traveled also on official business, and she asked me to sit in for her during this meeting and moderate it. I sit here and I'm basically in charge of the people and culture, or what we usually call human resource, and the day-to-day administration. However, there's another part of me that I would like to share with you, and that is the creative in me. For a very long time, I did not know that I was a creative until late in my life, because I am a career teacher, I am a career psychologist, and I am a career administrator. But throughout my career in education, I have been involved with the youth, very young people at university level, at high school level. So I'm able to appreciate their creativity that they bring to the table. However, when I turned 50 years, that was quite a while ago, so you can imagine now what my age is. At 50 is when I decided that I could enter the creative world, which is what I did. And in this particular case, I am therefore, I can say with much confidence that I am a career actor now. I have been involved in quite a number of films through MultiChoice or Mnet, I've done about 15 films. I've also been involved in 6 or more TV series, which are viewed both in Kenya, and some of them are also viewed on a platform known as Showmax, which is viewed all over Africa. And I am also, as of Friday last week, on Netflix. So I can comfortably say to the ladies and gentlemen in this forum that I am an international actor, because I was also a part of a film which was known as Sense8, which was also something that was on an international platform. So that is where my creativity comes in. But my involvement with Creatives Garage has been basically for various films, short films that have been viewed on which are uploaded on our Calabash platform. And in addition to that, we also, I've also been involved with, some of the day-to-day activities. When COVID hit the country in mid-March in Kenya, we have an office space, but 1 week after that, we requested that all our people begin to work from home. And what we needed to do was also, we had our day-to-day meetings. And then we came up with this project, which we called the Lock-In Festival. The Lock-In Festival was a festival that we held because we usually conduct festivals for artists, where we created a platform for the artists to showcase their work. There was a lot of song, there was a lot of dance, there was a lot of music. There were people, we had an art gallery, we had people who had wares like, baskets and, beverages and pickles and all sorts of things. And all these were viewed in our 12-day festival. This was completely sponsored by Creatives Garage and a few friends of Creatives Garage. During these 12 days, we are confidently able to say that we reached 1.4 million people worldwide just by using Facebook to for these live sessions that we had, jam sessions, we had discussions, we had yoga, we had so many things for the creative, and we are proud to say that about 1.4 million people worldwide tuned in. In Creatives Garage, we are also pride ourselves in being writers. We have produced a book that is known as Femolution, which is women telling their women's stories. We did volume 1. We are now in completion of volume 2. And this time around, not only do we have the hard copy, but we also have an audio book, which I am proud to say that I did the audio book in totality. We also have various debates and master classes, especially for the film industry, which we usually conduct. We used to conduct them live in our offices, but now because of the COVID, we have master classes which are televised online for various areas within the film industry, be it casting, be it location finding, be it directing, be it lighting, sound recording, and so on and so forth. And in addition to that, we also have various discussions on areas like another project we have is something that talks about, we call it prosexive, where people are able to talk freely about their sexuality. So today I sit here to moderate this session, and I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank Africalia for giving us this opportunity, and also for the participants who have joined us. Thank you very much. Now, Africalia, as I said, we have a long-standing relationship with Africalia as Creatives Garage. This is an online discussion that we're going to have, which is organized by the Creativity is Life project, which you, the artists who are here today, were a part of. We appreciate the support that Africalia continues to give creatives in this region pertaining to their work, pertaining to their talents. During the crisis, I think one of the worst hit areas were the creatives, because when we were on lockdown, we couldn't go anywhere. The DJs couldn't play music in the clubs. The artists, the singers couldn't have, we're just moving almost to Easter. All those gigs that people had, productions closed down. People who were in the middle of making a film or in the middle of in a series, we shut down because we could not have, more than a certain number of people in a particular space. So most of these creatives went home because now most of our countries were in lockdown and people were staying at home. And creativity or the arts is never considered to be an essential service. Although I think personally it should be, categorized as an essential service, because when you lock people down in their homes, what are they supposed to do? They need the arts, they need that creativity, they need the films, they need all of this to keep them busy and occupied during this time so that they don't worry too much. So the initiative is highly recommendable and very admirable. Creativity in life, the grants went, I believe, a long way in appreciating the talents of the creative sector and looking for long-term solutions to, the artists. 50 artists in 7 countries, namely Burkina Faso, Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Uganda, and Senegal benefited from this particular project, where they were talking about the here and now. How do we handle things the here and now as creatives? And what about the world of tomorrow? Is this our new normal? Is this the way in which we communicate? And therefore, if it is the best way in which we can communicate, how can we pass our messages out to the people, out to those who, who are eager to hear, to receive information, and in the same vein, keeping our creatives busy, giving our creatives an opportunity for them to make money or from the wares or from their talents or from their creativity. Today here we have the 3 artists who are winners and active in the multimedia discipline, in film, documentary, production, animated short films, and the development of video games. Benedict, I don't know whether you have anything else you'd like to add from Africalia before I move into talking with the individuals or the individual discussions.
Well, I think you have said everything. If I can add something, it's again that Africalia is very, very proud of all the works that have been created during this project, and thanks to the grants. So again, thank you to all of you for your artworks, and thank you for all this creativity and all this new perspective on the way to thinking the world of tomorrow or the world of today.
Okay, thank you very much, Benedict. Okay, so we have 3 artists who were the winners, as I said, and are very, very active in the multimedia discipline, that is film, documentary production, animated short films, and the development of video games. We have with us Cissy Nalumansi from Uganda, who produced a documentary. We also have Rodney Masanga from Zimbabwe. He produced a 2D platform for video games. And we also have Chief Nyamweya, who is from Kenya, who also produced and adapted a Kenyan comic book. I must admit, Nyamweya, I was very intrigued by the way that 6-minute clip ended, and I'm really looking forward to what happened after this young lady came from her grandmother's place. It was a good piece of work. So maybe I'll begin by asking, and maybe Cissy, if you could take this opportunity to introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background in the industry or as a creative, and what made you come up with a project that you came up with.
I'm curious how, I mean, is there anything to be grateful for? I know COVID is a bad thing. It's taken so many lives. Many people haven't made it through, or maybe their life is not the same. But are you grateful for anything?
Yeah, I'm grateful for so many things. But one thing that this COVID situation has taught me is to be grateful for life, like the gift of life.
Yeah.
Cissy, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Cissy Nalumansi. I am from Kampala, Uganda, the home of Groundnuts Fest. The Kenyans know that better. And I'm so thrilled to be here. So I'm a scriptwriter, producer, but I've always been passionate about directing. So of recent, I just went and decided to just do it. And so far I'm working on 3 different projects that I'm directing. So I'm not doing so bad after all. I thought it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very, very grateful for the chance. So my career in filmmaking started a few years ago, I think 3. I did a bachelor's degree in IT at Makerere University, and I thought that was going to be my calling. And then I realized I suck at it. I was so bored. I was so bored. I wasn't creative at all. And then I was like, no, Cissy, you're not going to waste your life trying to do something that you really hate. So it's high time you got off that bus and took a motorcycle to wherever you have to go. So when MultiChoice Talent Factory opened up that opportunity for young creatives to join the MultiChoice Talent Factory, I applied and I went through. So I spent a whole year in Kenya. And
Okay, with Joki Mohoho.
Joki Mohoho, yes, with Joki Mohoho.
Yeah.
So that is I was for a full year. Are you friends?
Yes, we are.
Oh, that's really nice. Say only good things about me, please.
Okay.
All right. So I came back home. I was honored to be given an opportunity by MultiChoice to go to Nigeria to experience MVCA and the whole process of award giving, and also to work with a company in Nigeria that was producing, that is actually still producing a TV production called Tinsel. So I came back in the time when COVID was the most scariest thing that ever existed. And that comes with stigma and people singling you out, thinking you're about to die or you are the one who came back with the disease. So I know a thing or two about, being the person with COVID. But lucky for me, it was an experience. And when I came back, I started to work on different productions that were very, very close to my heart, and that is what I've been working on. But for the idea of Creatives Under Quarantine, a documentary I did, when I just came back from Nigeria, I was in a self-quarantine for some good time. And by the time I came out, I saw everywhere on social media that a gentleman called Mambo Faizo, others used to call him Rasta Carlos, had died of hunger. And the first question that I asked myself was, how can someone in this day, age, era, die of hunger? I mean, it's just a matter of reaching. Uganda is different in a way. We are so hospitable that you could go to the neighbor and you say, you know what, I don't have what to eat. Please provide me something to eat, and they would give you. So it made me curious why someone would die of hunger. So I started to reach out to the different people that were close to him, and they told me that because of the lockdown and the government putting a ban on people's movements, he found himself in a house for a long time and he could not move out. Usually, Uganda is funny that when that happened, when the lockdown was put in place, they could not allow anyone to move. So if you didn't have food, it was hard for you to get food. If you were sick, it was hard for you to go and access services. So many people died in that process. Pregnant women died with their kids. People with different attention that they needed could not get it. So many suffered in that era. So that was one of Semambo Faizo was one of the people that died. So then it made me curious as creatives, because Uganda, we are still a small industry. Have we done enough to reach out to one another to find out how we are doing and just keep in touch, check on your neighbors? If we can't check on the whole of Uganda, at least we can check on our neighbors, someone that you work with on set, maybe your producer or your director, because we are very few. And then I realized we haven't had the chance to do enough. So that is why I came up with Creatives Under Quarantine. And basically what I was doing is reaching out to the different creatives, trying to understand how they are surviving in COVID. What have they had to give up? How are they staying creative? And how are they not breaking up in this time where everything is so scary and it is easy to go into a mental breakdown? So I reached out to as many as I could with the restrictions of our government, because you could not move out of the city without media cards or time finding you when curfew comes and you're not back home. You would actually, you know what happens in Uganda? They would put you somewhere on the road and they're like, stand there till morning.
Oh my.
So it was, yes, so you would stand there till morning and then they're like, okay, fine, it's morning, now go. So I was trying to avoid such situations. But I was able to reach out to the creatives that were in my close proximity, at least within Kampala, Kawempe, close cities. And then I got to interact with them and funny stories they shared about how they are surviving in COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So those are, first of all, the story, I've watched the documentary, and it really started on a sad note, when we heard about that artist who passed away because of he wasn't able to reach someone. And for the longest time, I have always known, Uganda is the place, the land of plenty. Food has never been an issue. I do remember even when we have been getting yellow maize. I've never heard of Uganda, getting yellow maize brought to them. There is, the land is so fertile and so on. So it's, I think, a sad state of affairs. And I do agree with you that during this time and maybe in future, the reaching out to people, just even a telephone call to find out, what people are doing can serve, go a long way in comforting somebody, who, is sitting in their house, some people all alone in their house. And apparently this is something that I've also been doing a bit of, especially because I said I'm a psychologist. You find that you find people who, suffer from loneliness and isolation because they're alone in their homes. They don't know what to do. They're not allowed to move out. The trauma that affects them, the mental health issues, and so on. So we've also seen from you some of the difficulties, that you face, especially with the curfew and so on. But kudos for a good job done, and tackling the best way you could. Maybe we can move to Nyamweya.
Forget it, Uncle. I am not interested in your money. Full stop.
Really? Don't you activists use money like everybody else?
Not blood money.
Okay, Mora. Suit yourself.
Why are you beating the children?
Tell us what the experience was like for you, because I remember in Kenya, it was, I think, 11th of March that we reported our first case of COVID. And then soon after, there was lockdown and so on. How was it for you as an individual during for the last 7 months as a creative? Please begin by introducing yourself and telling us a bit about the work that you do. And then you can tell us what the experience has been like during this COVID era.
Hi, thank you for having me on this wonderful call. My name is Chief Nyamweya. Real name, not it's on my birth certificate. And I've been an animator and comic book maker for the past 10 years. In my previous life before that, I had just graduated from law school, so I'm actually a lawyer and also a chartered accountant. But I had the misfortune of graduating about a year after the post-election violence, and because of a lot of external as well as internal factors, I did not proceed with that career, but I ended up on this path. And currently, I'm the co-founder and creative director of Freehand Studios, which is an animation and illustration studio focused on impact. We want to have positive social impact. So, for example, we won't work on fossil fuel advertisements for like Shell and such companies, and just generally we work with a social conscience. And to some extent, some things have impacted us during the COVID period and other things have not. For example, one thing that worked to our favor is that animators already work in a fairly decentralized way, mostly using technology, mostly in front of screens. But what COVID has done is accelerate trends that were already in place. In the decade before the pandemic, there was already a trend toward digitization, toward people working in a decentralized way. And when we came together to work in a co-working space, it was more for inspiration. It was more for being able to just lean over on your desk and be able to say, hey, how do I solve this and whatever. And so in that regard, we've been able to adapt quite quickly. And there are a lot of really good softwares that allow teams of animators to work. A good example is one which we used in this project. And a lot of the funding that we received from Africalia actually went to buying more upgraded versions of these softwares, things like Frame.io, where you can work on a common video file, and a sound person is providing their feedback there. The illustrator is giving some feedback there, and we're all able to coordinate. And truth be told, from a workflow perspective, it's actually made us much more effective. Really, what it is more from an emotional perspective of being able to perhaps we still occupy human bodies, and human bodies enjoy human contact. So from that perspective, we've not been impacted that much. But just like everybody else, our life has changed in how we move. But it's also been an affirmation of some of the ways in which we work, working a lot out in nature. Like my friend Tim, we haven't seen each other in over 6 months, yet the work speaks for itself. You can see luckily he has joined us on this call. He can tell you about it. He lives across town in Machakos County, and I'm all the way here near Dagoretti. And it's like we've been together this whole time. So maybe I'll yield some of my time to Tim to also allow him to comment. Since he did the animation, I did the illustration. He can also comment a bit on the process and how we worked with all the voice actors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Tim. Good afternoon.
I'm good. I'm so
welcome
excited
to this
about
session.
it.
Yeah. Karibu sana.
Shukran.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your area of expertise, and just the project. What inspired you?
Awesome. So I'm initially an animator. Before illustration and anything else, I was an animator. Then I had to grow on it, doing client work, client projects, and then it gets to the point where now I have to expand from client work to entertainment. And this project with the chief was very good. Yeah. So now chief told me this thing last year that this book that we're gonna work on. I was so excited reading that book, and I saw all the frames of the entire story. Yeah. So and the thing, my approach, I use sound on one side and I use visuals on the other side. So while going through the book, I see both things come to perspective. So and then COVID hit after we just discussed about this whole thing. Yeah. So through the application that Chief mentioned, it's called Free.io. We are able to streamline our workflows, like share files on the same platform. You could do the illustrations. I get the illustrations from Free.io, and just it was very non-destructive kind of workflow. And as I said, we haven't worked for about 4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We haven't met.
I'm very intrigued.
4 years. Yeah.
I'm very intrigued as to why that drone was sent.
Oh, the drone.
I'm wondering why that guy ended that story laughing, and the drone. Why was it spying on that girl when she had gone to see? Is it Gogoro? And that is one thing. So I'm curious. And the other thing that also I was very taken by is, of course, Sitawa Namwale. I know her voice.
Yes.
And
wonderful
she
actress.
Particular part very, very well. Thank you to both of you. Before we move on to now asking you the intricacies of the issues that you're facing, I'd like now to our third fourth panelist, who is Rodney Masanga. Rodney is from Zimbabwe. Rodney, I'd like you first maybe to introduce yourself to us. Tell us your background in terms of the multimedia discipline, and then what happened when COVID hit Zimbabwe, and how you've been handling it, or how it affected the creatives in Zimbabwe. Rodney, please.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Rodney. Basically, for my background is I've got a degree in psychology as well. So I studied psychology, graduated,
fellow psychologist,
and graduated and everything. Yeah, fellow psychologist.
Oh, great.
So I graduated with psychology, and after uni, I wanted to figure out and indulge on my creative side. So that's what I did. And the first thing I got into was animation, because I felt everyone's got a story and I want to tell that story. So I got into animation, and the first film I actually completed, it got nominated at the Click at Amsterdam Animation Festival. So I was like, oh, okay, so this is definitely what I need to be doing. So the more stuff I animated, it actually got out even worse, even more rather. So it went to the Silicon Valley Animation African Film Festival, Nigeria, Scotland, Trinidad and Tobago. And this was all the stuff that was just happening. And as it was happening, I then realized that, okay, animation is great, but what more can I do to actually make an impact? So that's when I got into e-learning and game development. And with that, I managed to create a little game, which for ECD kids, which teaches maths and stuff like that. Put it on the Play Store, and I was like, okay, so people are interested. And from then on, my goal has always been to create experiences by touching on animation, touching on game development, e-learning, and even to an extent film, and trying to combine those together to actually create a story which is really, really compelling. And so that led to me founding Dreambox Creative Production Company, which is the place I head, and I'm also the creative director there. So everything was going well. And at the same time, I was working with an American company and an American animation studio. So everything was well and doing our projects. Then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, naturally the American company started downsizing and we're the first to go. So it took a significant toll also like on income coming in and all that stuff. But at least I had my company so we could continue running through COVID projects and stuff like that. But I noticed also that creatives obviously were very fickle people. And when COVID hit, a lot of people around me were actually suffering a lot. And they were going through depression, frustration, you know, all those emotions which are connected with that. So when that happened and started happening, fortunately enough, my wife actually came across, she's the one who came across the project, Creativity is Life. So she sent it to me and I was like, you know what? This is actually something I need. This is the perfect timing for this project and everything that's happening in my life and the people around me. So embraced it with open arms. But I was thinking, what can I create? What can I do that will actually make an impact? And so that's when Koli came to life, which was basically the story of an 8-year-old girl who's lost her parents through COVID-19 and now has to deal with life. So what I realized with the project as well was, okay, this is something really big, and with the timelines is almost next to impossible to carry out. So I then decided to break her adventure down into chapters, and through the grant, my first chapter was Sadness, which has to deal with Koli dealing with the sadness that's going through her life because of COVID-19. And as a result, on our timelines and everything, came up with an extra 6 chapters where Koli goes through frustration, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, and fear. And also calling upon my psychological background. Basically, it states that through every significant life event, there has to be intervention. And this is something I think our culture and Africans as a whole, we really don't think twice about. If somebody dies, or even if you move to a new town, there has to be some sort of intervention psychologically, but we do not recognize that. So I felt maybe I could touch on stuff like that through the game. And to better understand the game as well, I actually took a course with the University of Reading, which was a COVID-19 helping young people manage low mood and depression course. So yeah, that was just my MO, to just try understand what people are going through and also live through my experiences and the people around them and try find an intervention in a way that is colorful and entertaining, and at the same time is actually doing something. So the whole game ended up being based on ACT therapy, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. So as you go through the stages and you're achieving, you've got this little friend called Fari who's going through the whole process with you. And he's also helping you accept that this is the new normal. Things are not going to change, but you have to live in the exact moment. You're breathing, you're seated, you have a meal in front of you, or you can at least interact with people around you. Just to appreciate the simpler things, to really press that reset button and be a bit realistic and also have the courage to move forward. So yeah, that was pretty much my project. And in terms of how people are coping in Zimbabwe, this is just like an extra layer to the complications that have always been there. So you can really see a lot of people are even going into meltdown. And it's really tragic as you hear more and more stories of what's going on out there. But hopefully through this project, it's just the first step to helping people access, obviously, to the internet or the technology to accept what's going on in their lives.
Excellent. I think your background in psychology is so powerful in your particular project, because people need to know that it's okay not to be okay during this particular time. And therapy or seeing a psychologist or seeking, professional help is not a Western thing, so to speak, because lots of people say, me, go and see a therapist. Why should I see a therapist? I mean, I'm okay. I'm not realizing that mental illness is real, and lots of us are going through that. The depressions, the long feelings of sadness and hopelessness and worthlessness, because you're no longer able to put food on your table, rather than looking at more creative ways in which you can earn an income. And I totally agree with you in terms of the exercising of gratitude as a preventive measure in terms of, the little that you have, think positive, appreciate it, and then it can grow from there. So I think that is extremely exciting. And more so that you were able to create a game that gave hope, that gave support during that particular time, as opposed to all the video games that we see. And I see quite a number of them which have so much violence, and we're wondering, is that the way in which the world is heading, to, that kind of violence? But if there is hope, if there is support, if there is people are standing together, that is extremely powerful, even as we move through this COVID. Cissy, I'm going back to you. Maybe you can highlight on the experiences or the difficulties and the challenges, the fears and the doubts that have been faced by creatives, and whether they have adapted to the new normal in terms of now people perhaps are confined, people are on lockdown, people are not allowed to converge in large numbers, because when on a set, when you have a crew maybe into 20, a cast which is 20, and that's 40 people. So how is the industry faring, so to speak? Because for you, when you were doing the documentary, most cases you were just one-on-one, with the people, so it was pretty comfortable. But what is happening now in the industry following maybe your documentary, so that people could see what was happening and the situation as it is now?
Okay, so first off, the government not being so much on the side of the creatives has affected much in even the way the creatives handle themselves. For instance, if there is no policy, like when they were trying to give food to the different sectors, the creatives were at first left out, because it's not recognized to be a creative. So many of them that didn't have backup jobs went hungry. They didn't have food because no one was giving them food or considering them. At one time, our president said, if you are in the media and it's not working, go join agriculture. So,
yeah.
So imagine that as that is one of the challenges, being in an being in a situation that is affecting you, but nobody is there to support you through it. Mostly the people in power. So that is one of the challenges. The other challenge was being that our industry is rising, it's on its footsteps. We had challenges with them knowing the advantage of having money put aside in times of crisis. So when the COVID hit, all the projects that we're working on had to be put on a standstill because they could not finance them. And that does a lot to their creative side, because without the money, they can't really go out there to do anything about their creativity. So it affected them much. And our industry is still suffers from I don't even know what to call it. It's not a disease, but they themselves haven't really declared that being a creative is a job on its own. So it's something that they go on to in their free time, so they do not give their best. And if you do not give your best, you cannot bank on it to get the monies that you need. So most of the creatives in Uganda are broke. right now.
Yeah.
They don't have money to move forward. They are struggling here and there to get something to put on the table for families and food and pay bills and that. So that is one of the challenges that I think the industry is facing at the moment. And being that there is COVID that is limiting everything and the movements, it's made it worse in most of the Uganda communities. Yeah. So,
yeah, I totally appreciate where you're coming from, where you go and tell somebody that I'm an actor, and then they tell you, so what else do you do? You know,
exactly.
Think it's a hobby, and yet it's a livelihood. And yet, what's amazing, what is so strange is that the very same people are the ones watching you on TV and, you know, rushing home to watch that program that you are featuring in with so much, you know, they're so keen, they follow, you know, these people have become literally part of their lives, and yet we're not giving that, the entertainment industry the weight it deserves.
That's what my mom said.
Yeah.
That is what my mom said when I said, you know what, I am not going to do to get a job in IT, I'm going to do films. It was like, okay, but I had plans of taking you to the army to do IT there. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to the army. She's like, you can do films in the army. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. So it is really hard for them to recognize that you can be successful at making films and getting money out of the films that you make.
Yeah. Chief, maybe you can tell us some of the challenges that you face, although the fact that you told us that already the fact that you're working, you were, you know, COVID or no COVID, because you work a lot on, you know, online, so to speak. But there must be some challenges that you have been facing just in, you know, in your particular art. What are some of these challenges?
You know, the interesting thing is that to be a creative in Kenya, and from what I can hear about Zimbabwe and Uganda, to be a creative in this part of the world is to be, what's the American expression? Forgive me, a canary in the coal mine. You know how they would put little birds down the coal mine and if the bird dies, they know there are noxious gases down there. That's how the creatives are for the economy. We are always the most vulnerable. We're the ones who feel them because there's no insulation, there's no insurance, there's no basically it's high. You're a very precarious worker, and you know, just to give a perspective unique to comics, part of the reason why so many comic book films they become the mainstay of big Hollywood studios is because it's a very cheap way. It's a very cheap way to do research on what stories work, what stories don't work, because they're the only non-unionized workers who just basically experiment with stories, you know. So you get to know which superheroes resonate, which ones do not, because you don't have the same costs of big films. It's mostly a person drawing. Of course, there are costs associated with that, but compared to when you have to secure sites with permits and, you know, coordinate large teams of actors, this is done in a much more concentrated way. So to cut a long story short, I had already begun feeling the economic shocks of about 3 years before. You know, there was I had just come back from a period. I'd gotten a scholarship to study at Singularity University in San Francisco, just to deepen my understanding of virtual reality and these new technologies. And when I came back, you know, I'd spent most of the money that I had on transportation and whatever. So I was unable to be absorbed by the Kenyan economy. So I had to even move up country. Part of the reason why it's the story of a person leaving the city. Maybe I hope we can talk a bit about the story itself, because many of the themes I'm touching are addressed in the story. So I had to leave the city because I could not afford to live in the city for about over a year to develop the stories which are now being seen made in these animations now. And really cut down my costs to bare bone minimum, understand what is the basic infrastructure I need. You know, next to my desk, you can see a small bottle here of Indian ink. Most of my early animations were done like that. Maybe I can even show you examples here. I would have a book like this, where I would put in the pencil drawings. You can see the initial concept art for Maokoro. what becomes the animation, and many of the scenes you can see. So it's just one person sitting with a pencil, and then also covering the costs of the team further down the line. You have the animator, the voice actors who came in, and many of them really appreciated being able to do this. They hadn't worked for quite some time, and animation allowed people to work without being in the same location. Just record your voice, you send in the voice file on Frame.io, Tim stitches it. So we have gone through the fire. We have been tested in the most intense fire. I mean, I'm not putting too fine of a point of it, but I'm sure one of these days I might meet you at Creative Garage and we can talk.
But going through the fire means that you're refined.
Yes.
You're refined to distinction.
Yes. So we've actually learned a thing or two which we could actually help the entire economy, not only about work practices, but also reclaiming our dignity as human beings and reclaiming ourselves from this nightmare, this 100-year nightmare of a colonial state, which we are still in the process of removing. And the way it impacts people on a day-to-day basis, it's not that you have a British governor coming and imposing every day of your life. Every day of your life, the leftover residue of the colonial state is your interaction with a police or with a police officer or some other bureaucrat, and these bureaucracies which exist to just basically perpetuate themselves and collect rents from the population. And a very tiny fraction of our economy actually benefits from the economy. Some people estimate it at 3%, and the rest of us are basically marginal. So a lot of the support that I also got for this project, because in the months even before the pandemic hit, it's just good fortune that we had been thinking about these things. And it's very affirming that this is actually where the world is going. A lot of the support we got was from institutions that are focused on decentralization right now, which is the crypto community. We had institutions like the Interchain Foundation, the Algorand Foundation, and all of these other companies that are thinking, how can we apply technology to create a more decentralized world? In Kenya here, we have the 2010 Constitution, which in effect is a constitution about decentralization. How do you move? How do you take governance and the benefits of good governance to the margins that the colonial state was not interested in? It was just interested in a small privatized institution at the center in Nairobi, and everybody else existed to serve that center. And those are the themes which the book touches. In the first scene of the book, it's interaction with a policeman who's brutalizing somebody for some frivolous charges, and then they leave the city to go and try and relearn from the grandmother. So it's also that intergenerational dialogue about how do we repurpose with the help of, we have to use everything that we have, and technology is a part of that. Because even though we restore some of the cultural institutions that we lost, we will not go back the same. We'll go back transformed in a way from interacting with with these systems. So I don't know what questions emerged from observing it, but yeah, I'm also interested in hearing what your take was on the project.
I thought it was, I watched it to the end, I was amazed, and when it ended, I was like, "Aww!" So this guy was now laughing all over the place, but I liked the purity, of the village versus the brutality of the city, and just hoped that at one point in time we'd come to a realization that purity can come in the city. That doesn't really cost much for the for us to just say the please and the thank you and the assistance, because of being our brother's keeper, rather than just speaking the words. We need to act on the words. We talk about, and I think a lot of it is our culture and our tradition, and some of these came about, as I agree with you, from colonialism, where we were told that everything that we did was bad, as opposed to we have some great things. Like when I mentioned to Ronald here, that people tend to think that going for therapy is a Muzungu thing, but if we actually look at our traditions, there were always those aunties and uncles that we used to send the young people to at a particular stage in their lives so that they could get groomed or given advice or given direction. Before marriage, you were given direction. That was the same as, premarital counseling. It's just that it wasn't called that, but it was more or less like, this is how you behave. A man, this is how you behave. This is how you treat. This is how you bring up children. All these are values that we were told are bad, but yet we had them within ourselves, and it's beautiful that we're able to bring out the wealth of our culture using modern technology. That for me really resounds well with me.
Just to add a small point to what you've added, you've just given me this idea is that we often think about art as not being a necessity, artists as not being essential workers, and that it's as if there's a Maslow's hierarchy, which I'm not fully convinced by. The psychologists are the ones who give us this gift. That somehow that you must first of all take care of economic needs, and then further down the line, somewhere on the third level, is when you think about picking up a pencil to draw. But our ancestors had no conflict whatsoever with dedicating huge amounts of time to threading together a necklace. Every single economic activity, whether it was harvesting, planting, weeding, it was a communal affair, and communal affairs involved singing, dancing, poetry. It was so well threaded into our existence that we never made the artificial demarcation that we do now between work and play. Work and play were embedded in each other. And that's something that also the book, you can see the way the grandmother tries to give that gift of the necklace is really emphasized, that this is what you must do. You must place this at the center of what you're doing.
Okay, Ronald, now that we are living in the so-called new normal, for me now it has become the normal. I just can't imagine life without, without technology. We as Creative Garage were out for about 6 months. And when we decided to reopen the offices in September, and when we came back, there was everything with the masking and so on. And there's still some organizations who have, in fact, there was one major organization I know in Kenya, one of those blue chip companies who, churn out millions and billions, perhaps on a monthly basis, who have actually adapted to working remotely. That is their new normal. I don't think they're opening up the offices. I went to visit their offices the other day when I was conducting a webinar, and the offices were totally deserted. In a building that has maybe 10 floors, I think there were about maybe 10 people. That's one person per floor, where it had a capacity of maybe 2,000 people. So how can we encourage, what are we going to do with our creatives to work and produce and make money even in the new normal? What are your thoughts on that? Ronald?
Well, this is something I've always thought about. I'm always laughing with my wife that if we have a daughter and she says she wants to marry an artist, I'm saying no, she's definitely not marrying an artist. So that's the thing we've always had. But what that now forces me to do, reflecting on everything that has happened even before and after COVID, is we have to teach artists the business of being in business, the business of art. I think that's the biggest struggle that we have, and even now more so with COVID. And just because a company closes, I don't think that's too much of an issue in that it actually lessens overheads. Because I had an office, for instance, in town, but when COVID hit, I actually had to rethink and how to carry on. And now, even as we speak, I'm in my garage right now, which has been converted into a three-man office, so guys can come through. And even with the teams I work with right now, it's like, okay, let's give you an internet allowance, and maybe if you just want to escape home, because the other problem of artists is you're probably working from your bedroom. Your bedroom is your office, and you're living at home. And sometimes you have to have a place to escape to. So I think going forward, especially governments and just policymakers in general, can create environments. I know they've been trying this for years and decades, but just a place to escape to for artists where they can carry their creative work. Because like it or not, if you look at Western countries like Hollywood and stuff like that, they invest in the artists. That's why you've got Hollywood, which is actually one of the biggest exporters in the States, because they invest in that. And if we come together as Africans and actually invest in our artists, we've got so many stories, and they're beautiful stories to tell. But nobody has heard of them. So if we actually invest in that, and it calls upon us, everybody who is involved with this project, I think we're the leaders. We need to make that impact so that the stereotype is removed and we can actually make art legitimate. So we need to show people that, yes, art does work, art does pay. And we need to be the forerunners and the leaders to carry that flag and show people that this actually works. I can make a living for this, and I can actually even become filthy rich from this. So that's my belief. And we need to show that it works, so that the mentality of, nope, my daughter is not marrying an artist, or that stereotype of struggling artist just dies.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, especially that, the creation of space, because sometimes people think that you have to be on a fully fledged, set to give a story, whereas there's so much diversity. You can still tell the stories through animation. You can still tell the stories in pictures or in documentaries, which maybe do not require as many people. So if we're creatives, I think we need to dig into our, creative spirit, so to speak. Now, the next question I'd just like to throw to the team. How can we retain connectivity and with the artists and transmit, get them to be proactive and transmit the messages that they have, the messages that they usually do have on, when they're shooting a film or they're shooting a series. How could we retain that connectivity or develop that interest? What is the missing link? Why haven't we adjusted to this new way of operations? I'm throwing it to the group, to anybody to answer.
I am speaking from the perspective of Uganda, as the first challenge has been analog. Being too analog has been a biggest issue. We don't want to transform to digitalize. We've always thought you have to do everything with your hands and your body, and you have to be in that physical space for anything to be done. And yet with the presence of COVID, we've been told that you can do things in your comfort, the comfort of your seat, so you don't have to go anywhere. So we've been blessed with as many platforms on social media that we can get money out of. Video on demand platforms have come up. I feel it's about us as creatives waking up. Honestly, I could be wrong, but I think creatives are one of the laziest group. We like to work within our headspaces, and anything that involves us moving out there, going and being very, very aggressive, we tend to pass them on. So it's upon us as creatives to become go-getters and reach out and grab those opportunities. Take, for example, Africalia. We did not have to go to Belgium to get these films funded. It was done in the comfort of our seats. All we had to do is create the time and do what was necessary. So, and I know very many Ugandans who passed on this opportunity, and they were like, not for me. I wait for something bigger to come my way and stuff like that. So it passed by their eyes. So we have to wake up as creatives, engage the internet, because we will not go back. Nowadays, even when you look at the laptops produced, you realize that they don't have the space for CDs like in the past, where you would just plug in your CD and watch your film. Now everything is becoming mobile or web-based. So if we do not accept the fact that change has hit us or slapped us in the face and decide to bend with the bends and go with it, then we are likely to be left behind. And also, while I was producing my very first film, it's called The Village Champion, I reached out to people in their offices and I'm like, hey, I have this film idea and I need you to sponsor it. So I just landed on different people that I didn't know. And some of them didn't give me the attention, but some of them did. And at the end of the day, I got a few that gave me some money and I ended up producing the film and they saw the results. So we are lazy in a way and it's not good for our industry, which is just starting. So we have to get up and be creative and reach out, explore and dig those opportunities out of the ground where they are buried and see that we become afloat. Because for so many days, we have cried for the industry, for the government to help us. The government policies are not flexible for us. They are not working for us. We need a policy, a framework that will ensure that when you distribute your film out there, it will not be pirated or you will get your monies back. But feels like this is going to take forever. We will die before we see the government do anything for us. So at least for now, we have to rise up and do something about us. I mean, there is the money is there, but we need to go dig it wherever it is.
If I may speak, I have a slightly different perspective. It mostly comes from my experience. And, you know, I on this project, for example, there was a really excellent team and all of them worked overtime. Even the size of the grant only addressed a fraction of our costs. Most of the other costs were supplemented from, different institutions and even our own money to go toward this project. And people worked quite hard. So my experience, obviously, because animation is a team sport, it's not one person who does it, is that the most passionate and hardworking people that I've met, and I've had the opportunity to work as an accountant, as a lawyer, in many different disciplines, the most passionate and self-sacrificing people that I've worked with has been in the creative space and specifically in animation. I think the most transformative thing that I experienced as a creator myself, am I on mute? Sorry. The most transformative thing I experienced as a creator was just, and this happened late in my career. It's not something I did early in my career. For the first 7 years, I was floundering, trying different ideas, just going where my passion went. But in the last 3 years, I really spent time defining my purpose. And by that, I mean, even getting it down to a sentence, just one sentence that kind of encapsulates what it is you're doing, because a lot of the time we're working outside of formal institutional structures where somebody is telling you what to do, when to do it, how to basically climb some corporate ladder. Here you have to define it for yourself, and without such a purpose statement like the one which I explained in the beginning, it's very hard to find the passion, and most importantly to find other teammates who you'll be working with and other people who will get you where you need to get. So everything that I do is basically motivated by my own experience living in Kenya and wanting to reduce the bureaucratic burden, because I think as Kenyan people, our quality of life could be dramatically changed if we minimized our hostile interactions with the state in the form of bureaucracies, which give you your identity documents, in the form of the tax collectors, whether it's people collecting parking meters or whatever. All those interactions are hostile, and that's a structural problem. It's not that you have so many bad people who want to make your life miserable. I want to see a better world, a greener world, because I love working in green spaces, peaceful, where I can breathe. And, I'm willing to spend time working for these things. So if we spend more time defining our purpose at an individual scale, at a communal scale, and yes, as a continent, then the sooner we define that purpose, the faster we can find each other and have an impact that's greater than, the sum of our parts.
firstly, I think we need to recognize where we are and in terms of creatives, at which point in time we are in. And what we are is we're a first generation of digital creatives. We are the first people in Africa who learned animation or learning animation or doing film properly as it should be done and sharing it with the rest of the world. And I think once we learn that, we know that we need to have the pioneering spirit. And I agree with almost everything that's been said, that we need to have that pioneering spirit whereby we realize and make the journey shorter. All our pitfalls, all the troubles we've gone through, it's now our job to actually create a model, an instrument that just shows the next generation how to do the business of being a creator in Africa. Because one thing I've also seen is a Western model will not necessarily work in Africa. So we need to now go through all those obstacles so that we can create a model that works for Africa. And yes, I definitely do agree that creators are lazy. It's not lazy per se, but we procrastinate. And we stay so much within our heads that we do not act. We try to wait for the perfect time or the perfect environment to create something. So now we need to, it's our job to actually now say, no, this is how you do it. When you're feeling lazy, everybody's gonna feel lazy at some point. Or when you feel like procrastinating, everybody's gonna feel like that. But no, you actually have to get up and just create, no matter if it's terrible. Because I've got one saying I have, which nothing begins good, but everything good begins. So you just have to start, and whether it's rubbish or not great, you just have to carry on and smash the stereotypes, and that's our job as first generation of digital creatives. It's upon us to make it easier for everybody who's coming in behind us.
So maybe some parting words from Cissy, from Ronald, and from Chief. Some parting words or words that you feel would be powerful, that you could encourage upcoming artists or artists who have been there for a while on how to maybe adjust to the new normal and, you know, gear into their creative juices. Maybe some parting words from each of the three creatives that are here. And in no particular order.
Okay.
Yes,
may I start?
Yes, please.
All right. So to me, I think reaching out to creatives in the COVID time has given me time or a moment to evaluate what we have been doing wrong as creatives or what we haven't done enough, and that has been reaching out. It is so instrumental just getting your phone and dialing a number of another creative and you just say, hi, how are you doing? Let me hope you're fine. In any case you have any problem, please feel free to reach out to me. You might not necessarily help them, or you might not even, warmth that comes with the call could save a life. I mean, had someone reached out to Rasta Carlos, maybe he wouldn't be dead after all. So we haven't done enough. When you're so into your project, maybe you're shooting a TV drama and it's so demanding, you forget that other people need you at the same time, or they could use your help. So I am just encouraging many people out there, and mostly in our creative space, because we have to start with the ones closest to us, to reach out more, to show some love, to remember the roles that we have to do. That's something that we have to do, that we have the power to change how some pets are sealed. And if we know that, then there are some people whose lives will save. And also reaching out to someone. I've been so encouraged by how many people came out and donated food, even in the creative section where we were not given that much of food, but we got the little that we had, and they reached out to other people who were not in position to have anything to eat, and they gave them food. Might not have lasted them a lifetime, but even them knowing that they are going to go through this day, because people have lost their jobs here, people have lost their sources of income, the money that business money, and so now they're stuck at home. All they do is stay home and ask someone to give them the bread for that very day. So if we have the chance to reach out, if we have the opportunity to do so, and we just share that love with someone else, I feel like we could change the world one bread at a time. So to me, that is very, very important. Also,
Thank you
as
so much.
creatives, one more thing, sorry.
Yes.
I feel like COVID has helped us to redefine how we work. I was one of those people who thought when I was so blocked as a writer, I needed to walk around and then go spaces so that I feel my energy come back to me. I know very many creatives say this, that you get your own time, walk around, feel your peace, listen to music as you walk, as you do something. But then because of the lockdowns and the curfews, we've been told, redirected to act in new spaces. So let's redefine how we interact with our creativity, so that, because this has been so far the worst time that we've faced in this century, I think. I don't know about the previous ones, but this one has been awful. Yeah, people have lost lives and we've been so scared. But if we have been able to produce content, because I don't know if you guys have made some research, but there is so much content online at the moment that has been produced in the COVID times. There are so many COVID themed films out there, and I'm just excited. I'm like, even in the worst of the situation, our creatives have become creative with it, and it's very, very energizing. So let's not stop making content, because being in COVID, we realized that people watch more content in COVID, and this is our opportunity, because everyone is at home and they need to watch more and more content. And if we make more, then we'll be able to even get the monies that we wish to get. Maybe we wouldn't have gotten them when everything was normal and people were busy in their offices. But to me, that is my message.
True.
Should I go next? Yeah, I'm so honored. I'm so honored to have shared this room with you, Cissy, Muthoni, Rodney, and Benedicta. It's been phenomenal. I think on behalf of the rest of the freehand movement team, I would not be lying if I said that this is some of the finest work of our career, in spite of all the challenges and working remotely. I think we are going through a period of transformation, not just as creators, but as a globe. And creativity, art, is one of the only domains of human activity which celebrates uncertainty, which celebrates change. In most other fields, change is not a good thing. I mean, if you talk to auditors, people who do audits, they don't like new things happening, new files. If you talk to a lawyer, they don't like new, we are the ones who transform and transmute changes, new things into, just think about it this way. If you went to a film and you knew what the ending was, you wouldn't want to continue watching that film. Or if you went to a game, a football game or a basketball game, and you knew what the outcome was going to be, it would be no good. So creativity is really essential for human beings to be able to make sense of a changing world. And we are at the forefront of that. And if the artists cannot find a way cannot be found.
Thank you very much, Chief. Rodney, your parting words?
My parting words are pretty simple. As creatives, we'll always be the people who society will always find hard to understand, and there's a reason we need to be resilient, we need to be tough, we need to be strong, and we need to know that sometimes it's okay. It's okay to fail, it's okay to be afraid, and we just have to live in that moment and be okay with pushing out of that moment as well. I mean, it's uncomfortable to go into uncharted territory, but we need to be okay with it. And we need to show a lot of love and grace with each situation that we face. We will be broke, we will not be understood, not everyone will love our work, but it's okay because you're given an opportunity to actually create better work. to actually understand and push beyond our limitations. And those are just my obstacles will always be there. I mean, it's not only for creatives, it's for everyone in general, but we just have to live through it and just push through it and go through it. I mean, like for my project, it's supposed to go on the Play Store, but it's being bounced because they need a letter from my government to actually allow it to come onto the Play Store to show that this will actually, anything to do with COVID now needs a letter to come onto the Play Store. And it knocked the wind out of me, but with each day we're getting closer and closer with it being released. And that's just life in general. And we need to be okay with being uncomfortable or being insecure and accepting that and being able to push through. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, I would like to say that life is dynamic. Life is not static, and change is inevitable. None of us were prepared for the COVID-19. I mean, if we were all prepared, we'd have known how to handle it. It's a new learning experience, and change of any type, whether it is good or bad, plays into our, our mental status. It requires energy for us to adjust, and that energy affects us emotionally, affects us psychologically. I mean, the last time we had a pandemic was 1918. We had to speak by which we could measure and say, oh, in 1918 they behaved like this, and therefore we should behave like this. What I would like to say is that we need to complete the grieving process, because what we went through when COVID first hit is the grieving, the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the dialogue, the depression, the very low points in our lives. But we need to now move on, as we are talking about the new normal, move on to acceptance. This is the situation. What do we do with the current situation? How do we deal with things now that they are the way they are? We cannot, I mean, for example, I always give people examples of, unfortunately, post-election violence in Kenya. We had never experienced violence of that nature in 2007 when we had our first, that situation. But come 2012, people were better prepared. They knew, oh, this happens, this is the way we're supposed to conduct ourselves. Maybe this should happen, maybe this should happen. And as we've moved on, it has more or less, lessened, because we have learned from the first time. So again, right now, even as a creative community, let us dig into our creativity and make sure that we use the current trends that are there, the current applications that are there, use technology to pass a message, because we all as creatives have a story to tell. All of us will appreciate the stories that are told. We have a point of view to bring across, a lesson that needs to be learned. And this can only be done if we are able to totally accept the changes that are there and adapt to the new changes. So I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank you, Chief Nyamweya from Kenya, to thank you, Ronald from Zimbabwe, and to thank you, Cissy from Uganda, for joining us on this particular meeting. And of course, the hosts who are Africalia, thank you very much for giving Africa an opportunity to tell its story.